What would you consider an emergency? I never want to spend my emergency fund whenever something happens in my life. I just kind of, figure it out without tapping in.
That's kind of funny because you know, uh, emergency to one person is not the same emergency to somebody else, right?
Yeah.
And you know, my my daughter, has a dog, and the dog got into the coffee, the actual ground up coffee, and
Hmm.
ate a bunch of it really quickly, and that can be quite hazardous. And so she's been saving money, and has this, and ended up with a 900 and some odd dollar vet bill to
Yeah.
have the dog, basically taken care of. Dog's fine. And so, that was an emergency for her, and she had that money. So that's what the emergency thought process is just this idea of, hey, I have money in case something happens, or if I need, because you could lose your job if you're
Yep.
still, in the workforce. That's an emergency. You can, if you own a house, there's all kinds of things that can happen to a house. Believe me,
Yep.
that keeps on going. And so all of these types of things that are out there. However, um, the reality of an emergency fund to me is just peace of mind.
Hmm.
To me, that's what it means. And so, what is an emergency? How much should I have? I get asked that all the time, actually. Because there's these rule of thumbs out there,
Yeah.
right? 1 month's salary, 6 months salary, 6 months of expenses, whatever it is. Uh, for me personally, when I'm dealing with these, it's enough money so that you can feel safe, right?
Yeah.
That's
And
it.
and what am I tapping into this fund for is, what's going to affect my daily life in a sense. Let's say my car breaks down. I consider that emergency because if
Right.
I don't have my car, how do I get to work?
Yep.
If there's a health emergency I feel is really easy. Shelter is kind of a weird one because sometimes you can get away with it. You can say, "Oh, my AC broke, but it's winter. Can I put it off for another 6 months till
Yeah.
summer?"
Yep.
Yeah, you could do that, but
Right.
maybe it's better to get fixed.
Yeah, usually it is, but we see a lot of deferred maintenance that happens, and people have a leaky roof. They just keep on dealing with it,
Yeah, here
or
in the
whatever.
summer, leaky roof, it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Get out the pot and pan when it starts raining, So, really, an emergency fund is going to be something that you look at and say, okay, that's what I want. And it's a personal decision. The rules of thumb I never see really apply. I have clients that think their $5,000 emergency fund is too much, really, because they want to have everything invested and they're really into that and they don't feel like they're making any money. I have other clients that have 500,000 or more, in the banking system, hopefully at different banks nowadays, but and they don't think it's enough still, because they feel like they need, more comfort. And for me, if you're going to be an investor, you want to have that emergency fund at the level that makes you feel okay as the
Hmm.
markets fall apart. And so then you don't have to sell. It's one of the reasons I'm a really big advocate of emergency funds, so that people aren't calling me at the bottom of the market, panicking. They have a lot less chance to panic if they can still take a look at that emergency fund. So
Hmm.
what you consider an emergency is probably personal also, uh, but how much you have in that is really personal. And the way to look at that is just, what dollar amount. So I mean, I was having a conversation. A gentleman had, 300,000, and he's like, "Should I have this much or not?" And, I said, "Well, what do you look at? What do you think about, like, when something happens, how much money do you want to make sure you have around?" He said, 100,000 seems like more than enough. I said, okay, then the other 200,000 should be invested somewhere,
Yep.
right? So that's how you want to do it. It's just kind of, when he looks at that 100,000, he thinks, okay, good. I'm feeling okay about my situation. Even
Hmm.
the market's down, or economy's happen, or pandemics happen, and all these crazy things that go on. He has his 100,000. He looks at that, and that can change
Hmm.
as to what that number is to make you feel comfortable. But nonetheless, that's how you do it. And so it's kind of two things. What's an emergency to you, and then how much should you have, in that. And that's really, again, those are both kind of personal questions. So.